Gina and housekeeping awesome Jeff.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Inside Scoop with Alex and Jeff. I'm Alex Dingman.
I'm Jeff Doss. Let's get into this, guys. Welcome. We are so pumped up for an awesome show. We have some great guests with you guys, with us tonight. Before I introduce them, I just want to remind you guys that we are sponsored by the Virtual Fight Tour. Join the Fight Tour January 23rd. It's going to be awesome. They got the draft, Jotty Tension's team versus Richard Plowden's team. And
full squad with alternates, too.
Yes, with alternates. And we got Ben Stewart versus Anthony Merricks. It's going to be awesome. So check that out, guys. And thank you, Jesse and Virtual Fight Tour, for sponsoring Inside Scoop.
VFT 5.
That's right. All right, guys. So we have special guests, Sean Elliott and Gina Thornton, world champions from my home area, state, town, city, every which way. And, man, I'm excited to have you guys finally on the show. How y'all doing?
Doing good. It's an honor to be here.
Doing good. Thank you for having us.
We've only done one other duo like this before. And a lot of time, Jeff and I talk a ton about, like, oh, what should we do with this? Who should we have on? Well, we've talked about having you guys on in different capacities before. But I'm going to be honest. This whole student coach thing, this is all Jeff. All right? I'm going to be honest. That's all Jeff. Jeff had a great freaking idea. All right? So this is only the second one we've ever done. All right? So we're super excited to have you guys both on.
The last one was Tony.
Really, since we started having guests.
So,
Gina, we talked about having you on like right away. Right?
Yes. Yes. So it's pretty cool.
For a lot of people within the last 15 years, we see one of you, we see both of you. But that's not how it all started. How did this whole martial arts game start for both of you? Sean, tell us how it started for you and when and where.
Sure. Ever since I can ever remember, that's all I wanted to do. I mean, from walking, going to grocery stores, I had to go to the aisle with the karate magazines. We had a place called Peter's Newsstand downtown in Lynchburg. Every time we went, I'm running through the aisles to look for the karate books, finding karate comic books and everything else. And
wow,
just always was excited about it. And then I ended up, I had a big brother. I didn't have a father in my life at that time. And I had a big brother through the Big Brothers organization. And he took me to see the movie with Billy Jack.
Yeah.
And then I was hooked. I was done. You know, and that dude, he told me, he said, I'm going to take this foot, I'm going to put it on that side of your face, and not going to be a thing you can do about it. From that point on, you know, I was like, I need to learn that. I need to know that stuff. And then, you know, it was, you know, my favorite cartoon was Hong Kong Phooey and then the Underdog. And I just always grew up. And then, you know, and I grew up in a time, and, you know, you guys were behind me, but I think you saw some of the time where we had some help because there were Chuck Norris movies and Bruce Lee movies and Jackie Chan movies, and the movies perpetuated the martial arts. And so we came up at a time where martial arts was cool.
Yeah.
You know, now if you're not shooting people and jumping over buildings, you know, it's a different story. But, you know, during that time frame, it was just cool to be involved. And it's just, you know, it just kind of went on from there. Ended up meeting a good friend of mine. I moved across the street from him. He's still my best friend today. He wasn't home when my mother took me to meet him, but his mother was there. And she said, well, you know, he's not here. I know you heard about him doing karate, but do you want to see some of his awards? And I said, oh, sure. And she opens up these double glass doors. And he's got a whole freaking room and wall full of trophies and ribbons and certificates and this. And I said, this guy's going to be my best friend. I never even met him. And so we're best friends even today. He had stopped karate recently and he hadn't done it since, but we still remain best friends. He's even been to some tournaments with me and whatnot. He's a big fan of hers.
Yeah.
So, but that was kind of my start.
Wow. I like that one.
So my parents put me in martial arts because I was bullied as a kid.
Okay.
So I joined a Taekwondo school and kind of went through the ranks. And then my dad wanted me to start competing, but I just did forms and I did weapons. And then he wanted me to start fighting. Well, it was co-ed divisions, and I kept getting my butt whipped. So then, so that's how I got into karate.
Right.
And it started there.
Sounds very similar to a lot of people so far.
Yeah.
So far.
That's right. So, yeah, go ahead, Sean, and share how, I guess it was her father that reached out to you, right?
Yeah, and yeah, I want to explain this a little bit before, but
yeah,
he called me one day, when you were at the school and whatnot, I was hardly ever at the school, not at first, and after Lawrence asked me to start training some people and then his team and everything else, I was there all the time, but there was a time when I was working all the time, 14, 16 hours a day, every now and then I would just pop in, say hello, whatever, and he was, at the time, I was his highest ranking black belt, and he would always ask me to just show my face more. Yeah, because he would always tell people I was his highest ranking black belt, but they rarely saw me. So I would try to pop in once in a blue moon, and it just happened to be one of the evenings I was there, and I was leaving, and somebody runs out of the door and says, "Hey, there's somebody on the phone for you." And I'm thinking, I can't go nowhere. That somebody's calling me, and I'm thinking this. My wife says somebody from my family, and nobody else knows has any clue I'm here, and it was her father. And he said, "Hey, I've been trying to reach you for over a year. I want you to train my daughter." I'm like, I have no idea who this even is. Who are you, and how did you even know to call me right here? I have no clue. Right. This wasn't the days where you had everybody's cell phone number. He called on a landline to the karate school. I'm like, what will even make you call these? I've been trying to reach you for a year. I want you to train my daughter. I'm like, well, where are you guys? He said, we live in Charlottesville. I'm like, that's not. And at the time, with other new roads, that's an hour and a half easy.
Yeah.
And exactly. I'm like, certainly you can find schools in Richmond. Certainly you can find something else. And he said, man, my daughter got 3 black belts and cannot fight her way out of a wet paper bag. Now, that didn't necessarily have anything to do with the schools. I want to,
right.
I've met some of her old instructors and seen some of this. It's not necessarily a jab at the schools, but that's what he said to me. And he said, I want you to train her. I'm like, I work full time all the time. I had started training a young lady, Master Arthur asked me to train, and I started training some other folks. And I said, well, I'm there on Saturdays once a week. If you want to bring her so I can take a look at her, we'll see what happens. And if something that I can help her with or whatever. I didn't know at the time. I was on Force 1. Right. And there was a guy named Reggie Goodwin who was training with Master Sonny Strong, who passed away not long ago. But apparently she was going there to do some training, and Reggie was the one, I guess, that got them in touch with me. I had no clue until like years later that that's actually what happened. But Reggie was the one that said, you need to go train with him. I don't know why he didn't train her, but he sent her this way. She came down, and I remember the very first time we were fighting, we were moving. I'm like throwing a little light stuff, and we both threw a hook kick at the same time. And I think she actually hit me with it. And I was like, "Oh, you're gonna be okay. You're gonna be all right. You're all right." And she came once a week. We had Saturday training. She would come and she would show up, and then it was her and a few other people. I don't know if you remember, Jeff. You were there. We had 25, 30 people. They would come from everywhere. Yeah, they would come from South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia Beach, Maryland. They would coming from everywhere. And so we all of a sudden had this big crew. And then the training with these guys went from Saturdays to Saturdays and another day. And then Saturday, and the next thing I know, she was driving. Her parents were bringing her up and down the road 3 hours, both ways, 3 hours round trip. Yeah. And we were trained no less than 2 hours. And that was like, it ended up being like 4 and 5 days a week. Sometimes she came and spent the whole weekend. Sometimes she came and stayed the whole week. She just couldn't. She just got involved, and once she got involved, it was just it, And then she got her license, and that was all she wrote. She was up and down the road all the time, every day, and it was like a great day.
Yeah, man. It's crazy. So Gina, just explain that commitment, that want at that young of an age. I understand it, and some people do, but for those that maybe are just getting to that or figuring out if this is for them, what does it take?
Well, at first, Like, I had to see what it's going to be like.
Yeah.
And then trust and believe, I came up with excuses when things got tough. And I was like, oh, my ankle hurt, or I'm having an asthma attack, so I need to sit out. But after I started learning, you know, about the fight game and how to use some techniques and when to use some techniques. And then I went to a couple like small local tournaments and I did well. I was like, okay, then if I give more commitment and come up a couple more days during the week, maybe, okay, it'll help me out. And then eventually, you know, he showed me the whole other side of competing, as far as like my first big tournament was Dixieland, when it was an NBL tournament down in South Carolina.
It was huge.
So it was huge then because you had CJB and, you know, God Squad. I mean, you know, those teams.
Yeah, all those guys,
IDC and so.
SDS, all.
Yeah, so it was like crazy and I didn't know. I was like, all these people do martial arts and compete, you know, so that it was just totally different. So then I was like, I kind of like this. So training and one thing led to another. And then I just, you know, I would sporadically compete then. Mm-hmm. But then like I would see, you know, Chelsea Nash and like, she just kept winning. And I'm like, it would be so nice to just keep winning. So, you know, then he explained, well, you know, she's a kind of a seasoned competitor that trains all the time, and she probably works in a karate school. Well, I don't. I've never worked in a karate school. You know, I have a full-time job. So I was like, I got to figure out how to train more and then compete more. So I think it was probably 3 years I tried to hit every tournament I possibly could. One,
we saw it.
To get that ring experience. Two, to get that exposure because I wanted to get on, you know, a top team.
Can I jump in this for just a second? Let me explain what happened.
Yes.
I said to her, Chelsea Nash is a world-class competitor. She competed with her one time. The first time I took Gina to a national tournament, a NASCAR tournament.
Right.
We were looking for Nancy Price because I kept hearing about it, and she wanted to be the best. When you want to be the best, you got to fight the best. And everybody's talking about this girl. But we know Chelsea. And so she goes to the U.S. Open. We're looking for Nancy. Nancy's not there, but she has like 20-some people in her division. She wins first place. First time at the U.S. Open, wins first place, and we're excited. Chelsea kicked her butt. and I didn't know what was going to happen, you know, because mentally sometimes it's tough for her. And I didn't know what was going to happen.
Right.
And she said, I love this. She said, man, I won first place and beat all these girls. I got my butt kicked because back then she didn't get beat. In NBL, she didn't get beat that much. Right. So it was exciting to me that it was refreshing to her to see that kind of competition, that level, compete against it and get excited about it. But with the Chelsea thing, what I said to her was, hey, look, you know, Chelsea's the best fighter in the world right now. Chelsea fights all the time. She's at a tournament every weekend. She is more comfortable probably in the ring than she is at home. You know, she trains, she competes, she probably works in a school. I said, Gina, you're a part-time martial artist. You're a partial artist. You work 2 different jobs.
Yep.
You come train in the evening when everybody else leaves. I'm working with her for, you know, a couple hours in the evening or whatever. I said, but you know, and then we competed like every 4, 5, 6 weeks. I said, so to have the level that you reached, because she's steady winning NBL world titles, and she's steady, and then she's starting to compete a little bit more in NASCAR, doing well. I'm like, you don't compare yourself to Jill. I mean, you know, she's a seasoned competitor. What I was trying to say to her was, don't beat yourself up as well as you're doing versus what you're trying to do. I mean, based on the time you put in, you're doing great. What she heard was, I got to go to every single tournament. I got to be everywhere. I got to fight everybody. I got to win everything. I'm like, Jesus. And that one conversation, we were somewhere every time.
Yeah.
I kind of would have heard the same thing, though, Sean. I would have heard the same. Because you know,
I wouldn't have said it if I had thought it was going to be.
But it didn't work out.
It did.
That's okay. I love, and I kind of mentioned this in the pre-show, that probably the last 6-7 years or so, when I watch fights, a lot of times what I find myself doing is watching the coach, right? And I watch and I listen, and I gotta tell you, I've listened to. You don't give a lot of sound bites, though, Sean. I'm gonna tell you, all right. I listen for what other people are gonna say. Like, what's he gonna say? What's he doing? What's the strategy gonna be? You don't really give a lot of sound bites that I can take home and be like, oh, are you kidding me? You sure what he said? You can make it kind of frustrating as a spectator. I'm going to be honest with you. All right?
We have to speak our own language. I have to
now
play a different style, and I have to explain things. And so, like, if I say it and I say it continuously, then that becomes what we call this. Like if I say, "Hey, check on the floor," I remember Ross asked me that. What do you say? What do you mean by that? I'm not going to tell you what I mean, but I might say some things like that, and she knows what I'm talking about. Now, when people come and ask me to coach them, I'm like, well, I can coach you, but don't think I'm saying the same thing as you. I'm going to say to her, because you will have no clue what I'm talking about.
Right.
That's the language, because most of the time when she's training, it's me and her. Now, we have a team that trains, but I ended up having her train the team, because it got to a point where Gina was almost like a remote control at one point. If I said it, she did it, and she would execute. But it had to be, okay, you're getting to this next level. So you have to understand why I say the things I say. You have to understand how to think about these things yourself. And so I made her start coaching the competition team, and I coach her. And now she's as good or better coach than I ever was. I mean, she knows what to say to these guys, how to talk to these guys. But it gets to a point where you have to think about it different. You have to think as the person on the outside, even when you're on the inside of the ring. I'm not always going to be standing there. I need you to be able to make these decisions, do the things you need to do regardless. So,
and that's when they grow, not only as coaches, but as fighters, as competitors as well. I've had to do the same thing, and I've seen it. And those people, those students, those competitors have gone on to do great things, right? When the more responsibility you take on, the more you see it differently. So
exactly.
Yeah. So
now, as far as the commitment, let me just throw this in there, because
you go for it, man.
The commitment early on was not hers. The commitment early on, and for whoever needs to hear this, it was her dad.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted it, and he pushed her and pushed her and pushed her, and he was the one that came to me and said, "She's doing pretty good, huh?" I said, "She's doing all right." You think you can make her a world champion? I said, "You don't want much, do you? You want me to get that right now? You want her to be a world champion? I mean, great day." I said, she's talented. If she's willing to do the work.
There's levels
he was
to
bringing
this.
her, him and her mom, they were bringing her. When she started coming 4 days a week, they were here 4 days a week. If mom bought her, she'd be sitting there working on grading papers and stuff while she was training. If dad bought her, he was in there making me tell him to shut up. I mean, it was just nonstop. And until she won that title.
Yep.
Then by then she was graduating college, I think, or just starting to go to college or whatever it was. And there was a point when I moved, and she got lazy. And we had to talk about making some decisions. I'm like, look, you got to have a reason. Anybody can be a world champion. Anybody can do it one time. Winning a world title and being a world champion are two completely different things.
Completely, yep.
And so we had a lot of those conversations until one day, and I'll let her tell the rest of this. But I mean, early on, parents say they don't want to push their kids, or I don't know how much is too much. But I don't think there's anything wrong with the push. I mean, the push is why she's where she is. I couldn't push her that way. You live in Charlottesville, I live here. You're not my child. I can't push you that way. But if somebody's willing to bring you and not let you quit, I tell my parents now, I said, look, if you're going to allow your child to quit at any point, then I don't really have an option to coach them. Because I'm not a nice coach. I might be a nice instructor. I'm not a nice coach. She was just telling some people the other day. I was like, that's another long story for another time. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, I got something for Gina, and then I'll have something for you later, Sean. But so when we were talking a little bit about coaching styles, like when you're in competitions, Gina, I've watched you coach. I react a little bit like you do. You are very vocal. You are loud. That's like I am very much me. All right. Like I was talking earlier to Jeff. I was like, I don't really have a filter. It's really easy to tell what it is that I think and feel and want. Like it's all right here. Here you go. But however, Sean, when you say like I'm not a nice coach, Gina, how does he coach you? Does he yell? What does he do? Does he give like Oh, that sucks.
Let me tell
Dude,
you.
30 laps.
So-
What is it? How is he mean? I want to know.
Yes.
Well, I think one of the first times I was in the women division, we went to a tournament in North Carolina, I think.
About
And
what year is this?
At the time, Julaine Shiflett.
Okay.
And probably in the first 30 seconds or so, Julaine got up 5-0. And so he yells and stops the entire tournament. You know how you in the gym, you got 6 rings, the whole tournament stopped. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I didn't even want to go around. So then I got yelled at. I got smacked upside the head. And then I came back, and I won 7-5.
Well, wait a minute. Time out. So many questions on that. Number one, how did you stop the tournament? I want to know
Because
that.
he yelled so loud that, it was like he was on an intercom or something. So everybody just stopped because you're supposed to hear announcements.
Well, I said time loud.
Really loud.
And so when they stopped, I only got 10, I got 10 seconds. So I did as much cussing and yelling and screaming and fussing and everything else and smacking upside the head as I could do in 10 seconds. And everybody, I guess, thought we were arguing or fussing or fighting. I don't know what they thought, but everybody just stopped to see what was going on. And I'm cussing for 10 seconds. And they said, time, let's go. And then she went back in the ring, and that was the end of it.
All right, now I have something for Gina. Okay, so you obviously remember that match very vividly.
Obviously.
Outside of the yelling and cussing, what was the strategic piece that he was telling you to adjust at that point?
I had to go forward and actually do something.
Go forward and do something. Yeah, that's usually it, right?
That's it? That was it?
Yeah, because I get really nervous. I have high anxiety. A lot of people don't know. Like, you'll see me pace. I'll warm up with him and things because that's just things that'll keep me calm. And there's other things I do too. So, and then when I first got in the women's division or even started with him in local terms, I was just get in the ring and stand there and not do anything. I didn't know what to do. I was nervous. I was scared. So I just stand there. So you stand there, you get hit, and in 30 seconds you're 5-0. So basically, I just need to go forward and throw something. And at the time, I was a kicker, so he just told me to kick, go forward and kick.
So you can get your damn foot up.
Well, yeah, that.
I like that. That's what I'm talking about.
I mean, it's tough. And then, that's how she started. And then, I don't know, she might have even been on Paul Mitchell at the time, or maybe right before that. I mean, it got to a point where
before that.
People saw her as a winner. Like, she was winning.
Yeah.
And she was getting stupid. I'm like, other than my oldest son, she was the only person I ever had a plan to say, I'm going to teach her anything and everything I can possibly teach anybody about any part of fighting.
Right.
And I'm just pouring stuff into. I mean, Gina can box you, outbox you. She will choke you out, as one of my MMA fighters came in and found out. I mean, she can do everything. And I'm like, why are you struggling? Why are you standing there with these people? You know how to do anything. You can beat a defensive fighter. You can beat an offensive fighter. You can counter. What are you doing? You're just standing there. And it taught me one of my lessons, one of my faults and fallacies. And it took me a couple of years, I think, to figure this out. It took a while. And I'm saying this for whoever might need to hear it. Okay, but I even had this conversation with John, and he was like, "Oh," he said, "That is amazing. You figured that out." I'm like, "Yeah, but every sports person, if Alex is fighting Jeff, what's he gonna do?
Kick.
Yeah, every sports person has a go-to.
Yep.
I'm expecting you. I've taught you 1,000 things, and in a split second, when that person moves, you got to figure out which one of those millions of opportunities you're going to use to try to stop that person or score a point. That's stupid. It was the stupidest thing I could have ever done was expect, I've taught you everything. Go out and use something.
Yep.
Yeah, no. So we had to back off and say, if I think about any famous sport person, any person at the very top of their level, you always know Mike Tyson will hit you with an uppercut and a hook. Ain't no question. It's just can you stop it? You know Michael Jordan is going to hit land 3-pointers and he's going to slam the ball from half court. I don't even watch basketball. Any professional athlete has their strength, their go-to, and we didn't have that. Had everything, didn't have that. And so I said, well, what things do you like best? She was good at everything. She said, I don't know. So then I had to look and say, well, what's winning? Of the top fighters out there, of the Chelseas and the Jotties and of all the top fighters out there, what's winning? What are they doing well? What's working? What are the high percentage points? And so we started drilling those things, and different ways. My boring, Jeff's been here. My boring my training is the most boring thing in the world. We're going to do the same thing for hours and hours at a time. It's going to be 3 or 4 different things, and we're going to do it 3 or 4 different ways, and it's going to last 2 hours, and then we go home. Yeah. to me and to some of my guys, I'm sure it's the most boring thing in the world. But look, if they can't stop it, then that's what we're going to do. We have to be the best at it. We can't just throw this. We have to be the best in the world, and nobody can stop it. And so the lesson I had to learn from it was stop trying to be great at it. Some people are. Some people, watch Kevin Walker, some of these guys. Some people do everything. Yeah. But it's not for everybody. And we had to just kind of be smarter and just decide what we were going to be winning with, and that's what we stuck with. Good or bad, right or wrong, that's just what it was. Right.
And so, what the time range? Let's what we're thinking. Probably 2010. Probably. I'm thinking. I remember when Jotty came down. I think for the seminar that he had in Roanoke. That was around 2010. What was that?
He kicked my butt the night before.
Yes.
And I walked. Yeah.
Yes. So that was about 2010 because I was. Yeah, I just got back from Vegas, so I remember that seminar, and I remember the conversations we all had afterwards at the Golden Corral, of course. If Jotty comes down to the South, he wants to go to Golden Corral. So, yeah, I'm thinking for me, I remember that being around that time where the switch kind of started coming. Is that about right, guys? 2010, maybe 2010? Maybe a little after.
Time frames I don't remember. I'm horrible.
Jeff, I'm kind of with you at that point.
And I'm horrible with that. But, the whole thing with Jotty was we were at a tournament one day, and Jotty, we went way back. Way back. And I hadn't seen him in a while. I had no idea he was a super fighter all of a sudden, right? Because with me, he was just the guy, that guy over there. He was fine. He was just another guy over there. I was like, whatever. When people start talking about him, I'm like, why is everybody talking so much about this guy? He's cool. I love him to death. And I'm like, everybody's talking about him like he's the greatest thing. Then I started watching videos and finding out, well, we're at a tournament in New York, and he's coaching. And I'm looking at him, and I'm like, he is saying the same thing as I say. He's coaching his people. He is an active coach. I'm looking at him thinking, that's me standing right there. And I hadn't said anything. I'm just watching him. I'm not even watching the fight. I'm watching him.
See, it's the same.
And Gina turns to me and says, he coaches just like you. I went over and tapped him on the shoulder. I said, how am I going to get you down to a seminar? I never want to fight down to a seminar. I went right to him and I said, if you're that much like me, but you're on this level now, I want you to come down and expose some people to you. And
that's smart.
That's good. But even after that, we went to New York a few times for her to train in this school and train with him and them. And I've had him talk to her personally, work with her one-on-one. And she figured out on her own one day. It was never for her to learn from him. It was for her to be around him. It was for, if you want people to be champions, you put them around champions. If I want you to be the best, I can't make you think you're the best and I keep you around everybody else. I needed her to know that I believed and that she needed to think of herself different. She's looking at everybody else because and I'm telling too much of her story, but she couldn't get on this team and that team. It took forever. And she would see people get picked up by this team and picked up by that team, and this person won this over here, and she could never see herself as that super fighter also. I said, well, train with him. He's a guy just like you. He's a man just like you're a woman. There are other women out here fighting. These other people up here training. Get him to mix with them, and when you get there and hang with them and train with them, and they respect you and you respect them, it changed her mindset. And as soon as her mindset changed and she believed she was supposed to be around those people, that's when she just took off. It just kind of, it was just,
And it hasn't stopped, right? I mean, that's
No.
the thing, man. And it's awesome, awesome to see.
I want to
Alex,
talk about some of
go
the
ahead,
teams.
Alex.
Yeah, I want to talk about some of the teams that you've been on. So I'm sure there might be a couple that I might have not know about, or maybe some that I missed. But I think we got, what is it, Mass Mall?
We had DDX before that was an NBL team out in the West Coast.
Yeah, I was on local team for us,
Yeah,
like homeschool team. So, and then Team Unity.
Okay.
Basketball.
And then was it Velocity?
Paul Mitchell.
Paul Mitchell. And then Impact.
DDX.
Oh, sorry. DDX was after Unity.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, I forgot. So I went DDX after Unity, and then Mass Mall, and then Velocity, Paul Mitchell, and Impact.
So I want to, let's talk about, because we kind of hinted a little bit in the pre-show about really how your dynamic together was working with all the different teams you've been on, Gina. So, and Sean, you and I talked maybe like a couple times, and we'll get into that. All right. Really just kind of I'm asking you how the relationship's going with Gina and that team. And you didn't need to say much, and I knew what you were talking. But really kind of how did your dynamic together work with the teams? Did you guys kind of have like an agreement, like, hey, this is what you got to do, this is what we're going to do? What is that like?
Well, he coached me through all of them. I think Murphy did coach me sometimes on Velocity. But
so even though you were with those teams, Sean was still your coach?
Yes, he was still coaching.
That's
and then
good.
when I got to Paul Mitchell, Damon Gilbert is the fighting coach there, so it was that he had to coach me, which was no problem. Everybody was okay with it. So, I mean, he would still come, It's just that, some people have, like when I go to a tournament, like when it was with Paul Mitchell, it was just me and the guys.
Yeah.
So it was like, and then you have the Hungarians that, they're great, but
they're going to be with themselves.
I only see these people a couple of times, so he would still come. So I kind of have that somebody there in the support system. And then, I always enjoy the warm up, and then kind of, going over our drills and things, because again, my anxiety is through the roof. So, and my nerves. So I would always do that. And then he would, be on the sideline. He wouldn't be in the chair. Dave would be on the chair. So that was that. And then as far as impacts, Richard Powell, he sits on the chair, and then that's fine. So, I mean, if the team has the rules, then that's fine. It's never been an issue when the teams have rules, with a certain person that's within that team that will coach.
Right.
Okay, now I'm going to get direct. Okay, so it was the Irish Open.
Oh, Lord.
Sean and I are sitting outside the City West Hotel. And as soon as I saw you there, I'm like, I got to ask him. All right. And so, Gina, you weren't there at that time. It was like later on Friday night, something's going on. And I was like, so Sean, how's this dynamic working out? What's it going? Because you ain't fighting. And you're in another country, not being the direct coach. How's this thing working? And Sean probably said 3 words. All right. And I'm like, okay. Because he ain't really say much, and I knew. So I'm like, all right, there's an expiration date on this. All right? There's gonna be an expiration date. And I don't know how it went. All right? And listen, different teams work for different people. All right? And like my buddy Greg Betlock and Elias Lemon, they are perfect for Paul Mitchell. Elias is perfect for Paul Mitchell because even before he was on Paul Mitchell, Elias didn't really do a lot of things, all right? He didn't really he didn't really talk to a lot of different people. He's an introvert, all right? Paul Mitchell is an introvert team. Gina is not really an introvert, all right? So that's why I'm like, That's why I kind of thought, I was like, just kind of curious. How's this going? So tell me what you can about what that experience was like.
Which one you talking
Gina.
Well, everybody knows. I just talk to everybody. It's just always been me. I don't mind talking to people. I get along with everybody. And I know some people don't agree with, you're supposed to kind of stay away from your opponents and everything. And I'm not that type of person. I've just never been. So yeah, that's not kind of a Paul Mitchell way, I guess. So it was, but also it was like some comments were made. It was just, Damon and I we didn't mesh well.
Okay.
So it was just time for me to leave, just because I felt like if we weren't going to have a good relationship and no kind of connection, even though I tried,
right.
Then it just wasn't the right fit for me.
Right. What's the point?
Sure. Now, but then.
Well, and let me say on that.
Go right ahead.
I'm sure a lot of people thought I had something to do with that. But because of the, what's the word I'm looking for? The lineage, because of the, what's the word I'm looking for? I used to tell you all the time. Anyway.
Legacy?
Yes. Yeah, because of the legacy of Paul Mitchell, I was excited that she was there. And not even about the people that were there now. It was the people that had made that team what it was. I mean, you talking the Pedros, Jody was on that. I mean, you take, if you look at the legacy of that team, K.A., Gerald, just the legacy is so deep, and it's kind of like, what, you're standing on the shoulders of these people. You are representing. I mean, there was only one girl. There was another one that counted for a little while, but there was one girl, and that was Chelsea Nash. She was the baddest thing out there, and now it's you. Right. I'm like, I know that there's things. She just couldn't, and it just got to a point where I just said, make the call and quit the team. If you so worked up, and she wanted me to agree, and I would never agree, and then we argued. I'm like, look, it's your life, it's your career. You do what you want. You're asking me to agree. I don't necessarily like that, but it's not my call. Stop waiting on me to say, I agree, and just make the call. So it was never Sean saying, quit Paul Mitchell. I just want to put that out there. It was never me saying leave it, because I think that the team, the legacy of that team is the strongest legacy out there. I think it's them. There's some other teams like Impact who are building their legacy to be equally as strong. That's at this point, these years. But that's a hard comparison to make, and to say, hey, there was Chelsea, and I think there's something. Oh well, Casey was there too. I'm not saying nothing where Casey's the bad girl, but as far as the fighting girl on the team, you went from Chelsea, and then you had Gina, and I'm like, regardless of wins and losses and everything else, that all by itself to me was huge. It was just tremendous, and I'm like, you can work through things, because you're always gonna have dynamics to deal with. Always have things that you have to overcome or whatever, but it's not worth the extra anxiety. It's not worth the extra, frustrations and tears and everything else going on. So, so as far as I was concerned, we had some interesting, we butt heads a little bit and all that stuff. It's not even here or there, but she made the decision because she wasn't happy, with the overall dynamics of the team. Nothing specific and no specific person. It just overall, if you took everything and put it together, it was it just wasn't the fit for her. It may be a perfect fit for somebody else.
Right.
Oh, and there is a perfect fit for a few people, and I kind of described that. Right. But now, fast forward, you're on Impex, and it was a couple of years back. It was an AKA. Well, that's kind of what people do, like first term of the year. Pow! I'm on this team, right? And I remember walking by, and I stopped and double taked because Gina, you just put that new uniform on, new Impact. And I remember I stopped and I go, that makes sense. That makes sense. I like that. And then I just kept walking, right? So How did that work? How did all that happen? What was that like? Did you call? Did you have a conversation? Was all of a sudden you got a phone call?
I was driving
there
home
hits?
with my parents, and Mr. Richard Clouden called me, and he asked me, and we talked, and I agreed. And that's how that went.
Oh, so it was a short
That was it.
conversation. It was like,
I mean, it wasn't
pop, pop.
long, like, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
it was probably like, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, but I was in the car and we were talking, but it wasn't a long out conversation.
And how's that been?
I think it's been great, you know, I mean, I miss seeing them, because I think, like, I guess the very first tournament I went to with them, it was kind of different, like, because we came into the tournament together. We stayed together. It was like an actual team.
Right.
Whereas, like, you know, some teams, they just kind of everybody just does their own thing and they just have a uniform on. But I was looking for that, like, family environment, that team thing. We hung, we got each other back. You know, you have your team dinner and stuff. That's what I was looking for. So it's been different. You know, and then, you know, Morgan and I team fought a couple times way back. We did it Capital Classics, because I had a Velocity uniform on and she had Victory.
Oh, so before you guys were teammates, you guys team fought.
And so in WKC, so, you know, I felt like us team fighting, even though, like, the last time we team fought was my bad, but we meshed well together, you know, and then I got to team fight. Like, I like team fighting.
Yeah.
But
It's an extra
I
fight.
was always like, I would have to find somebody. And then you got to find somebody, okay, you know, you got Morgan and Verona or like somebody like, then you got to find somebody that, you know, I would like to win. So now I got to find somebody, okay, I'm going against, you know, Morgan and Verona or, you know, and like, so, you know, you just, it was, so we already meshed. So it was good to be able to team fight. And, you know, I feel like the team is kind of close and we're family, you know, even though, you know, we don't see each other all the time, we do talk, you know. So it's just different. Yeah. And I think it's a better fit.
Got it. So a couple of things I want to talk about, and it's just, we had this conversation before about certain people and certain, like, humps that you had to get over, right? And I remember, I think, really the first one that you explained to me, and I remember talking to Sean as well, was when you're doing NBL, it was Casey Nash, right? And it was getting over beating her. That was kind of like that first obstacle, I would say, right? Pretty much?
Yes.
And so what was your mindset to accomplish that?
Say it again.
What was your mindset to get over that?
Well, we fought 7 times.
You know the exact number.
So it was like frustrating, and it got to me, but like I just felt like I have to keep going. I have to beat her. You know, of course, I have my times like, you know, maybe this is not going to happen because I can be negative with myself, but. I guess that 8th time, I felt like the game plan we had was like the game plan that was going to beat her. And I think by going to other tournaments and then having some other people to kind of train with, like we would go places and train, I felt like I had that more confidence in the ring. Right. So, of course, I was in her territory because, you know, Pittsburgh was a tournament that she came to a lot and would win. So, you know, I think, you know, as far as my confidence, my attitude about it, you know, I was ready. And the game plan we had, I just felt like we were going to do it. Of course, you know, I like to play with fire. So I started off a little rusty, but then I got my act together and I came out on top.
That's awesome. Yeah. And the thing is like, it wasn't just your struggle. I know Sean was just as into it and struggling as well. And so what was kind of the next one after that?
Man, this.
Well, that means, like, besides, like, of course, I'm, like, one of the only competitors that have had multiple injuries.
Yes. There we go. That's what I wanted to.
Each time, for me, I think each time coming back, it was hard. It was struggle. I mean, like, there's been a couple times that I've kind of gone into depression.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard. And then you have to, why I keep going through it, I don't know. But it happens, but it's hard to come back. So, I mean, like, I've had 15 surgeries.
Yes, there we go. There's the number that
Wait,
I
stop.
I mean-
Wait, what? You have what?
Yeah.
15 surgeries total.
Listen,
So, I mean,
just go,
and
I
each
gotta hear
time,
this.
like, you know,
I gotta hear this.
I mean, I feel like, you know, if I didn't have those injuries and I didn't have to take those several months off, I think I would be done, honestly. But each time I just felt like, you know, if I could get over the struggle and the hump and get back into training and, you know, that's because I miss it. I want to do it. If I could get back, then I wasn't done, you know, accomplishing all of my goals. There was still stuff out there I wanted to do, people I wanted to fight, people I wanted to be, places I wanted to go. So I just keep going, and, you know, that's how I still feel. But, I mean, if I didn't have the injuries, I think I'd be done.
Yeah. Man, yeah.
All right, tell me about some of these
Crazy.
surgeries. I gotta hear.
I've had 9 knee surgeries, 1 hand surgery, 2 shoulder surgeries, a nose surgery, 2 mouth surgery.
You've had more than Ben Stewart. Ben Stewart was on here talking about his, and I'm like, how are you put together?
Yeah.
He hadn't had any brain surgery yet, but that's the one that's
9. Tell me, you don't have to get details, but why 9 knee surgeries? Why so many? Because that sounds like the scary one to me. Because there's so many of that. That's a very important
part of
area.
my issue is I don't like to let my body recover.
Right,
Because
I hear that.
think that I don't have a lot of training partners, you know, like some
Right.
people do, like, you know, in Michigan, in Florida, you know, Minnesota. I mean, I just don't have New York. I don't have that. You know, it's really just us training. Like, you know, if I'm training during the week, I just come in, I'm training with him, and then that's it. So it's like he's trying to duplicate, you know, and be like other female fighters, and we're trying to base off a strategy where I just don't have a lot of stuff coming at me. So I'm doing the training, I'm doing my strength and conditioning. I just like, you know what, in order for me to, you know, compete with these elite female fighters, I have to put in the work, and I have to just keep going and keep going, and then I don't recover, and then I just, you know, wear my body out. I think part of that is a problem. There has been some freak accidents. I mean, like the tournament Twin Towers, when I fell off the stage. Yes, it was probably my fault because I was running or moving, but fell off the stage. You know, my leg got caught in the pipes. So that was kind of a freak accident.
Your leg got caught in pipes?
Yeah, so you know how that stage was in the casino. And
I wasn't there. I've never been in the Twin
the
Towers.
stage was in a casino, but normally when, like, tournament at the nighttime finals, you have a stage and then you have mats, but there's still more stage. So if you get right off the mat, you stop. Well, this one was stage and mat together.
Yeah.
So I kind of like, so Morgan and I were fighting for the overall, and I was trying
Oh,
to
and you got to move a
go
lot.
out to the left, and she kicked, but she still kind of caught me, and my foot was on the edge, and I fell with my leg. There was pipes, like I guess from when they put the stage together under, and my leg got caught.
Yeah, they had the stage butted up against the wall.
Yeah.
And there was a hole in the stage, her size, basically. And of all the places in the stage, she stepped off, and she just disappeared. I mean, you literally are watching her, and you just, whoop,
Wow.
and you're like, what just happened?
Yeah.
And there were pipes running underneath the stage, and her leg kind of got caught between them. And that was a bad one. That was the ACL. I mean,
Yeah, so that was a bad one. And then training a couple times, like my foot got caught in a guy's shirt, and it just, he moved, and it just kind of went either way. I mean, so some of them are from training, you know, a couple, you know, from tournament. My shoulder was at Diamonds. I didn't really know it, but it started hurting when I flew home. So come to find out, you know.
Wow.
But I mean, it happens. I mean, you know, it's just like, it's a combat sport. So I mean,
it happens. It sounds like that stage one. It sounds like it was not going to happen to anybody but you. That sounds wild.
Yep, that's my luck.
That's right. Oh man, it's crazy. Go ahead, Alex.
Well, Jeff was talking, about the different stages and the levels and the humps you got to get to. I guess what I'm curious is, what's the next hump?
Yeah.
What's the next hump?
Like what's the next goal for you? Like, what are you like? I want this, or I want to beat. Or maybe you got a fighter you want to beat. Maybe you got a tournament you want to win.
Morgan is one of them. I would like to be Morgan. I mean, she's the top female fighter out there. So, I mean, I'll never forget. It was like we were doing the overall for the WKC Nationals, and like there's comes to be 6 females for that kind of goes into the overall, but everybody bowed out but me.
Yeah,
it was just her and I.
Time that work out.
Come on now,
everybody bows out.
Yeah.
Tell us the other 4 females.
Yeah, so I'm like, my thing is, I want to beat her. It may never happen, but that's one of my goals.
Yep.
So there's a couple of people I want to fight and beat. There's a couple tournaments I would like to win.
What's one of them?
Say it again.
What's one of them? What's like the one where you're
Chicago.
like, all right, the Warrior Cup.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Why the Warrior Cup?
Because I haven't won it yet.
There you go. Why not, right? That's easy, right?
All right.
I lost Verona for the overall 2 years back, but I haven't came that close. So
I thought you were going to win that one. I remember that fight.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to win too.
You know what's funny about that
I
one?
wanted to win,
I got to tell you, that tournament, I believe what was that, 2014?
Yeah.
I think it was. All right. So this is only like 2 times. I coached against you. All right. It didn't work out. All right. So there was a young woman. I don't even know if you remember. Her name was Ashley Dahlquist. Super talented. All right. Very, very talented. She was on Team Straight Up. All right. So Joe Greenhaw and I had an agreement that when it comes time for her to step into the ring, I shut what they call the hell up. All right. The problem is I'm not very good at that. All right. So I kind of would just yell stuff anyway. All right. So, but you were the stepping stone. All right. So, and you ended up you beat her that day and you beat her another day. Now the frustrating part that she had is she was like, I know if I can get Gina, I can compete and win, because at that time I think it was like Raylan Perkins was winning a lot of overalls, and she and I would look at each other like, she ain't that good. All right, how is this happening? All right, she's got the longest legs. She's 16-foot legs. But if you can get around her inside, you can beat her. But nobody was doing that. All right, so she was like, but Gina, you were the challenge for her because you guys fought relatively similar, but your timing was very good. And I remember I told you, I said, listen, if you kick and you sat down in front of Gina, it's over. She's going. Yeah. She will tag you up, right? And that was like the biggest thing. Like if you sat down in front of Gina, it's over, right? So even though you didn't win that one, you were the measuring. You were the measure for pretty much that year, right? For her, because she wanted to beat Chelsea. She wanted to get a chance to do that, but in order to get to there, you were the measure.
Right. All right. So, Sean, what about you? What's your next goal that you have right now?
To stop this nonsense.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've only been in the game. I mean, Jeff, you know this. I've only been in the game to support what she wanted to do. I mean,
right.
I would have been done with this a long time ago. I mean, I did what I did, and I would. There are times when I look out at the people that are winning, the people that are doing whatever, and you always think to yourself, what if I hadn't, I mean, because the only person that was really keeping me from winning every major event that I ever went through was Tony Young.
Yep.
And it was just like, and it was always coming to him. It was just like Jesus, I remember fighting Jody and some of those guys, and just it was like, but hey, when I was done, I was done. When my son was born, when I was working all the time, it was like, this is what I'm doing. I'm done with that side of it, and I think Lawrence was the one that kept pulling me back in.
Yep.
Jimmy Sherman kept pulling me back in, and I was like, come on, guys. And then I was all but done one day. I literally called the coach and told him I wasn't making it to a tournament. I was leaving Force One. I was not doing this anymore because I was having too many issues at home. And my oldest son's mother said, you know that girl will fall to pieces. She will not be right if you don't coach her. Just go. And I'm like, what? I mean, we're fighting because I'm going. You know, she's like, just go. She needs you. You have to be there for her. Just go. And from then on, that's just what I've done. I mean, and it's affected most of the decisions I've done was just to try to make sure that she could. But see, because it's always another goal. It's like, I'll coach you until you do this. And then she'll do that, and I'm like, okay, you hit that level, and then go do your thing. No. And so when Damon picked her up on Paul Mitchell, I was like, okay, you got a top coach and whatnot. And Damon and I had some great conversations before she got on the team, and the whole thing was, he said he's going to take her to a different level. I'm like, great.
Yeah.
I'm done. But the agreement was, I'm going to watch you coach her a few times. Mm-hmm. So I understand what you say to her and what you and how you coach her and what things that she already does. And then I'm going to take her to another. I'm like,
yep.
Didn't quite happen that way. so then I was never comfortable and satisfied that she was going to get what she said. He would coach her. I'd be standing right in the corner telling him that, hey, stop doing that. That's stupid. And then and I was trying, I would try to stay out of it as long as I could. But if she's losing, I'm not going to stand there and watch her lose. And so I'm like Alex, I'm running my mouth. But then when she got on Paul Mitchell and I was trying to step off, she was like, I can't get on this team and let them down. You got to come. You got to be there because I can't let them down. I'm like, wow. And the only time she hadn't said that is now with Impacts. Right.
Wow.
So it was always, every time there was a different thing, a different level, it was always, oh, no, you can't stop now because of this. Oh, no, you got to hold on because of this. And it's like, geez, I really don't have any, I enjoy watching some of the up-and-coming fighters, but I did want to comment on, I don't know if Alex asked the question you asked, but when you asking me about her hurdles and her challenges, and I think Alex and I actually had a similar conversation this one time on, there was some other topic or conversation you got, and we were like typing and stuff for them, and Alex is on the big thing of Morgan this, Morgan that, Morgan this, and I said to him, listen, Gina's got so much competition in her weight class. Everybody wants to compare her to Morgan and talk about her. I'm like, Morgan is not in her weight class at the time. I think she was in the third. I'm like, it is all we can do to make sure she's constantly winning. I said, if she is the greatest super lightweight fighter that's been out there, I'm okay with that, and I'm trying to make sure that she understands she will always know. And she even had a conversation with another female fighter. I won't mention, she can if she wants to, but I always said to her, your job is to be the best super lightweight fighter in the world. That's your job. Yeah. No other sport would put the heavyweight versus the lightweight, this weight versus that weight. No other sport in the world does that. Right. In order for me to be great, in order for Mayweather to be great, you got to be Tyson or you got to be Lennox Lewis or whoever.
Yeah, but Sean, you know what? Don't we all say things like, it's Brady versus Rodgers? Tom Brady ain't never playing against Aaron Rodgers. They play against defenses. Right. But it's because they're so great. We recognize who the great competitors are. That's what we want to see. And that's why there's a comparison.
Well, and then that gets me she's in that conversation. Yeah, and she's in that conversation.
They talk about every sport talks about pound for pound.
Right.
You're right on that.
Talks about pound for pound. And so my thing to her was, you need to think about being the best super lightweight fighter. Your job when you go to a tournament is win your division. I don't care what else happens. Everything else is gravy. Yeah. I need you to make sure that nobody else walks into that super lightweight division. And there have been times, I remember when this young lady was fighting in D.C. She was gone with her parents to vacation. And I remember Plowden turned around to me and said, has Gina fought this girl? I said, yeah, several times. But see, a lot of you guys don't know who those guys are. Right. Because she's the one coming out of the division. Right. But she got to fight like hell to get out of that division. Exactly. So who the hurdles were, they were everybody. They were all of them. If you look at those lightweight divisions, because Melanie's there, Katana's there. If you look at her, when she isn't there winning, one of them wins. The year that she didn't go, she couldn't fight in U.S. Open, she was hurt. Who won? Ashley. Right. Your Ashley.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, out of the same weight class, same weight class. And that has happened multiple times. I mean, all those women fight. I mean, there's a bunch of women fighters that don't get the credit that they deserve. Even Ray Lynn, you know, I mean, she was awkward, and you wouldn't look at her and say, "Oh man, that girl is technically the greatest fighter I've ever seen." But Ray Lynn's use of her reach and her distance when she didn't get tired, you know, she was so awkward with the things she did. She was a monster to overcome. I mean, just a monster. I mean, it's just. I had a lot of easier time coaching against a lot of other people, other than Ray Lynn.
Right. Right.
I mean, it was just. I mean, I don't know. You know, sometimes it's just mindset. But all I wanted to say was the hurdles were everybody.
Right.
You know, she had her goals, and she would every day she would come into school, every single day. She would take like 18 to 20 pieces of paper and put them on the wall, because I always told her that you have to constantly keep your goals in sight. She would come in and tape all of her goals against the wall, and some of those pieces of paper, the first 4, 5, or 6 of them, were the list of every fighter she would have to fight. Wow. What they did, what side they fought on, what their specialties were, what weight class they fought in, what tournaments they normally go to, everything.
Did you ever take pictures of that?
Huh?
Did you ever take pictures of that?
Yes, I think I actually did.
Yeah, we have to see those.
Cool.
Yeah, I think I actually did. I had to find it, but yeah. But you know, the thing was, we always trained for all of them, and what I always made her understand was, I was like, Gina, you know, the reason that they don't really get you so much is because they're training for you.
Yeah.
And they don't realize you're training for them. If she beat somebody last time, you know what? But they almost snuck up on you this time because they figured this out. So now we got to change that. You know, Keith McKinley and I laugh all the time. He'll tell you, because Teresa and her fought, and she was usually handling that fight pretty well. And then at your tournament, Jeff, Teresa gave her a fit. Yeah. And I'm like, wait a minute. They saw something, you know, and I saw it too. And she was capitalizing on it. So you know the next time you guys fight, they're going to this strategy, and you can't do this same thing. So we're going to change this whole strategy up.
That's right.
After the tournament, he's like, you changed everything. Because in her wins, and even more in her wins than her losses, we knew that person came close or was a threat, or, you know, just a fighter all the time. You know, people that you fight all the time are some of the most dangerous people. Yeah. You know, even if you're beating them all the time, they're dangerous. And your mindset, I mean, who are you more nervous to fight? Somebody you lose to, or somebody you beat all the time? Because now it's a chat. Now I can't let that person beat me. I can't let, you know, Kiara came up to her one time and said, hey, you know, I almost got you.
Now you can never let her
we were training specifically for something else. Now it's like, wait a minute, she said that. Okay, we got to change something up. I mean, and it's always, you know, the challenge with everybody. It's not, because all of those girls are threats. It's so many talented fighters that a lot of people just haven't seen. That's you know, and we give them all the credit in the world. Their names on the list, and we train. And we don't train for a fighter, but we do train for different styles of fighters. I may say, fight this one like you fight this person over here. Fight this one like that one over there. She'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But, I mean, all the talent that she's had to deal with, I mean, all the Melody and the Italians, the Ashley, you know, Dallas that you're talking. I mean, it's just,
it's amazing.
This is on and on.
And this has been, you know, since the early 2000s now, and just continuing to keep going. So, man, Sean, Gina, thank you guys so much for joining us. This has been great. Sharing so many stories. I'm sure we can do this again. There's so much for us to talk about. But thank you guys so much for joining us. Again, guys, I know next week Alex and I are going to get into the draft, the VFT draft. Make sure you guys go out and check out the Virtual Fight Tour number 5.
Virtual Fight Tour 5 with the team matchup. We'll probably see Gina in Virtual Fight Tour 6. So that'll be good.
Yeah. Why not, right?
We'll see who she calls out.
That's right.
This has been another episode of Inside Scoop with Alex and Jeff. I'm Alex Dingman.
I'm Jeff Doss. See you guys next week.
Bye, guys.
See you guys.